Assalamu alaikum. This is Pratusha Borwa welcoming you to the English news from Btv-Chattogram. Let's begin with the top stories. SSC and equivalent exams begin with over 18,50,000 students taking part. Women candidates submit nomination papers to Election Commission for Jatiyo Shongshad reserved seats on last day. Public transport fares to be increased reasonably due to fuel price hike, says Information and Broadcasting Advisor. Remittance of about 213 crore US dollar comes in first 19 days of April. Fear for restart of war rises as ceasefire between Iran and United States not being extended. And tennis stars Carlos Alcaraz and Aryna Sabalenka awarded Laureus Male and Female Athletes of the Year. Viewers, those were the top stories. Now moving on to the details. The secondary school certificate SSC and equivalent examinations for this year began simultaneously across the country today. Around 18,51,423 students are participating in this important public examination. There is heightened attention from the administration as this is the first public exam under the new government. Security measures have been strengthened around examination centers to prevent question paper leaks and ensure a fair environment. Alongside law enforcement agencies, magistrates are also on duty. Each examinee is being strictly checked upon entry. However, the number of candidates is lower than last year. According to the concerned officials, nearly 4,46,000 students who passed grades 9 and 10 were unable to take part in the exam this year, which they see as a significant indication for the education system. The examinations are being held at 3,885 centers nationwide and will continue till May 20th. After the written exams, practical examinations will be held from June 7th to June 14th. Meanwhile, more than 1,30,700 students are taking part in the SSC examination under the Chattogram Education Board this year. Of this, the number of examinees in Chattogram city and district is 92,338. 56,351 male and 74,373 female examinees are taking part in the Chattogram board. 76 vigilance teams are working to conduct the examinations smoothly in a copy-free and peaceful environment. 66 general and 10 special vigilant teams visited the examination centers since morning. Apart from Chattogram district, 18,924 examinees in Cox's Bazar district, 7,417 in Rangamati, 8,071 in Khagrachuri and 3,874 in Bandarban are taking part in the SSC examination under the Chattogram board. Today was the last day for submitting nomination papers for the election to the reserved women's seats of the 13th Jatiyo Shongshad. Female candidates submitted their nomination papers to the returning officer at the conference room of the Election Commission building in Agargaon in the capital. Such submission process started at 9 a.m. and continued till 4 p.m. 17 candidates from the BNP and 13 candidates from the 11-party alliance submitted their nomination papers to the returning officer till noon. According to EC sources, out of the 50 reserved seats allocated proportionally, the BNP Alliance will get 36 seats, the Jamaat-led 11-party alliance 13 seats, and independent candidates 1 seat. As per the schedule announced by the Election Commission, scrutiny of nomination papers by the returning officer will take place on April 22nd and 23rd after submission. Appeals against the scrutiny can be filed on April 26th and hearings on appeals will be held on April 27th and 28th. Voting will take place on May 12th. Candidates believe this election is important to further strengthen women's participation in politics. The government announced a plan to vaccinate 1.80 crore children to check the spread of measles in the country while ensuring maximum medical care for the children currently undergoing treatment in hospitals. Prime Minister's Information and Broadcasting Advisor Dr. Jahidur Rahman made the announcement today at a press briefing at the Department of Information in the capital. Progress on various government activities was also presented in the briefing. He said, public transport fares will be rationally increased due to rising fuel prices, adding that discussions are ongoing between the government and the transport stakeholders. The advisor also mentioned that the country has sufficient stock and supply of fuel. However, some people are attempting to stockpile fuel in response to price hikes and the matter is being monitored. Speaking at the briefing, State Minister for Information and Broadcasting Yasir Khan Chaudhry said the fuel situation is not unique to Bangladesh but part of a global issue. Hearing continued today against Shojib Wajid Joy and Junaid Ahmed Paluk on 3 charges, including ordering the killing of people by shutting down the internet during the July uprising. After the deposition, the prosecution questioned the 4th witness, BTRC Deputy Director Maureen Hassan. The testimony was given at the International Crimes Tribunal 1 headed by Justice Ghulam Murtuza Mujumdar. Later, the same tribunal held the examination of witnesses in the case against 13, including Sheikh Hasina and an army officer in the case of disappearance and torture during the Awam League regime. In addition, testimony has begun against 4 others, including BGB officer Ridwanul Islam in the case of killing 28 people in Rampura. On the other hand, in Tribunal 2, the 5th day of arguments for JSD President Hassan al-Haq Inu in the case of crimes against humanity in Kushtia during the July uprising continued. Later, the same tribunal took testimony against 7 people, including Ubaidul Qadir, and the remaining cross-examination of the investigation officer who gave a statement against Mahbubul Hanif in a separate case. Remittance inflow remained strong in the first 19 days of April. Expatriates sent 212 crore and 70 lakh US dollar remittance, which is about 26,109 crore taka. The Bangladesh Bank released the data yesterday. According to the central bank, remittance inflow during the period maintained a positive trend. Expatriates usually send higher amounts ahead of Eid al-Adha, and following that pattern, inflows have increased this April as well. The upward trend is expected to continue till the upcoming Eid. In April, so far, remittance has increased by 23.8% compared to the same period last year. During the first 19 days of April last year, remittance inflow stood at 171 crore and 90 lakh US dollar. Bangladesh Bank data also showed that in March, expatriates sent 375 crore and 50 lakh US dollar, marking the highest monthly remittance in the country's history. From July of the current fiscal to 19th April, expatriates sent a total of 2,834 crore US dollars, which is 20.6% higher than the same period of the previous fiscal year. Now, international news. The US and Iran trade threats as tensions escalate between the countries before the two-week ceasefire ends tomorrow. Diplomatic efforts to end the US-Israel war on Iran remain uncertain, with Tehran saying it will not negotiate under the shadow of threats. Mohammad Reza Mohseni, who sits on the Iranian Parliament's National Security Commission, has cast further doubt on the prospects of talks with the US. In comments carried by Iran's main news agency, he said, "Negotiations are not acceptable in the current situation," accusing the US of being overly demanding and pursuing ulterior objectives for domestic benefit. On the other hand, US Vice President J.D. Vance is set to lead the US delegation for a second round of talks with Iran, with negotiations tentatively planned for tomorrow. Sources said he is expected to depart Washington, D.C. this evening, Pakistan time, arriving in the Pakistan capital by late morning or early afternoon tomorrow. However, whether Iran's delegation will arrive remains uncertain, as Iranian state television said today that no Iranian delegation had yet departed for talks with the United States in Pakistan. Iran's parliament speaker and head of its negotiating team, Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, said today that Tehran does not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats. He also said Iran is prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield after United States President Donald Trump threatened Tehran with problems like they have never seen before if the two-week ceasefire expires tomorrow without a deal. The war of words come as the second round of US-Iran peace talks scheduled to take place this week in Pakistan remains in limbo after the US seized an Iranian-flagged vessel near the Strait of Hormuz over the weekend, angering Iranian authorities and provoking another surge in global oil prices. Meanwhile, amid the uncertainty of the peace talks, China's foreign ministry hoped that transit in the Strait of Hormuz will return to normal soon. In the statement, the foreign ministry also said it hoped that the US and Iran would maintain momentum for the second round of peace talks. Lebanon and Israel will head back to Washington, D.C. for another round of talks on the Thursday to end hostilities. The talks, which will take place at the State Department, will be the first since a fragile ceasefire came into effect between Hezbollah and Israel last week. Hezbollah has described the talks as part of a series of losing concessions that the Lebanese government is making to Israel. On the other hand, despite an ongoing 10-day ceasefire, Lebanon's national news agency has reported several Israeli attacks in the south of Lebanon. The agency said Israeli forces fired artillery near the town of Kunin in the Ben Jebeli district. It also reported a series of Israeli demolitions across the south, targeting homes, buildings, and other infrastructure. The report added that Israeli forces booby-trapped numerous homes in the villages of Beit Leaf, Shalma, Biada, and Nakira, leveling them. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister Israel Katz threatened to kill Hezbollah chief Qasem, saying he will pay with the loss of his head. Katz said Israeli forces would continue to act with strength in Lebanon even during the ceasefire. He said it will do so to protect Israeli troops and try to diminish the threat coming from Hezbollah. Amnesty International said the heads of Israel, Russia, and the United States are leading the destruction of global human rights, describing them as voracious predators intent upon economic and political domination. The head of the global rights group, Agnes Callamard, said this while presenting the annual report on the state of the world's human rights, which was released today. In a news conference on Monday in London, Callamard said most governments tend to appease the predators rather than to confront them. Callamard said, however, Spain, which is an outlier in Europe for its criticism of Israel's genocide against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and US-Israel's attacks on Iran, is standing above the double standard that is destroying the international system. Amnesty's review of the state of the world's human rights makes for green reading, documenting attacks on fundamental civil liberties in most nations. Now, sports news. Two tennis stars won the top two awards at the Low-Risk Sportsman of the Year, known as the Oscars of Sport. Spanish tennis star Carlos Alcaraz was named the Best Male Sports Star of the Year, and Brazilian Arina Sabalenka won the Best Female Sports Star of the Year award. Spain's 18-year-old star footballer Lamine Yamal won the Best Young Sportsman of the Year award. The award was presented at a grand ceremony at the Cibeles Palace in Madrid. Tennis star Novak Djokovic and freestyle skier Olingu hosted the ceremony. Alcaraz and Sabalenka received the award for the first time in their careers. 22-year-old Alcaraz had a great year in tennis last year. He won the French Open and the US Open. He received the Best Male Sportsman of the Year award because of this success. Sabalenka, the top seed in women's tennis, won the US Open last year and reached 3 Grand Slam finals. Lamine Yamal became one of the most recognizable names in world football, playing for Spain and his club Barcelona.